Okay, guys, this is our first episode of a series. Where are we? We're in New York City on the 43rd floor of, this is a landmark building, right?
It is a landmark building.
And when was it constructed?
I don't know, but when it was constructed, I think it was the third or fourth tallest building in New York City.
So I am John Belizaire. I'm the CEO of Soluna. I'm here with colleagues and really friends. I've known Michael for 20 years. Dip I've known for 5+ years. So I'm here with Michael, who's the managing general partner of Brookstone Partners, and we're in their offices here in New York, where we've been incubating Soluna and talking a lot about bringing the company out. So this is pretty exciting to start doing this. And we've got Dip here, who is the CTO of the company, and we've known each other for a long time, and we've been working on all of the machinations of bringing this company to the world. So what's this series about? So for our viewers and our community that's just getting exposed to Soluna, again, this is the first of a series of episodes we're going to be doing. And this is all about the 3 W's. I coined that this morning as I was sort of thinking about how to kick this off. 3 W's, the who, the what, and the why. Yep. Who are we? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Why does it matter? That's really what we're going to be talking about over the course of this series. Really, is our goal is to find a way to introduce the community to the company, help them understand what we're doing, introduce them to the people involved in the company beyond us. So we're going to start with ourselves here. And then slowly but surely sort of expose to them more detail about the projects and what we're doing out there. So to start, I thought what we would do is just kind of introduce ourselves. I've kind of stole the thunder by giving everybody's title out, but maybe what we could do is answer 3 questions for our audience today. The first is, what's your role in the company? What are you going to do? What do you see your role in the company? Number 2, who are you? You know that question everybody asks you when you're
that's
at
a big question.
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yes. Like, who are you? Like,
who
are
am
you?
I
Like,
and why am I here?
Correct.
2 fundamental questions.
Pretty much. I mean, the question that they ask at dinner every time is like, so what do you do?
Yeah.
And when I hear that question, I really sort of translate it into
I try not to ask that question though.
I know it's really hard, isn't it? Because it's like, what do you talk about? It's so annoying sometimes. But I usually translate it into sort of who am I, and so and then the last thing I think would be helpful would be to sort of how'd you get involved in Soluna? What's the genesis of your involvement here? So 3 questions. I'll start. So I am the incoming CEO of Soluna. I'm pretty excited to take on this role. I'll give you the whole backstory on how that came to be a little later in this episode. Who am I? I am an entrepreneur. Having developed companies, I've done 2 now. In fact, Toporek was the investor in my first, and he was the investor in my second. He's been a big supporter of my entrepreneurial endeavors. I am an entrepreneur, and I've been fortunate to get involved right at the cusp of a lot of technology waves. I tend to be the guy that forms companies that are just entering a new transformational change from a technology perspective. My first was starting my career at Intel. I was really joining Intel just when the personal computer was becoming the center of just about everything we did, also becoming part of the business environment. When I started my first company after grad school with 4 of my close colleagues from college, that company was joining the internet wave. We were developing infrastructure technology for e-commerce, and that's really what was our first life-changing experience and made us realize that entrepreneurship is really what we enjoy doing, and that's what I enjoy doing. And the last one, most recent, was in the insurance space, where I was joining just before this whole insurance technology wave, and I was building the next wave of transformational technology for underwriting. And how I got involved in the project, I received a call one Friday afternoon. Michael Toporek calls me, as he does sometimes. Sometimes he just calls and says, "Hey, John, what are you doing? I haven't heard from you in a while." And he was a board member in one of my companies, so I would get those calls a lot. Like, I haven't heard from you. That could be good. That could be bad. But he calls me and says, we've been working on this project. It's blockchain related. You got to come in and take a look at this thing. And I says, I don't know, Michael. I mean, I've been, I'm getting close to some other projects. I got to look. He says, I know. But you got to come and look at this thing. And just to be totally brutally honest with you, I want you to look at it because I want you to run it. I don't want you to just give me advice. And I'm like, okay, that's a pretty major ask. I've known this guy for 20 years. Because it's him, I'll take a look. And so that's how I originally got involved. Who wants to go next? Michael, you want to go next?
I'll go next. Let's see. I'll give you a brief career history and then some sense of kind of how I spend my time. Let's see. I grew up in Long Island, New York. Was fortunate enough to get some scholarships so I could attend the University of Chicago. Spent 5 years there, did 3 years undergrad, and then 2 years in business school. Then after that, I spent about 17 years, combination of investment banking and industry. When I was in banking, I worked for firms like Dillon Reed and UBS, really working on building companies and working with management teams like Danaher and really great companies, acquiring companies and building companies. Because I think what I really enjoy is the building company process. And I started Brookstone Partners about 14 years ago, and it was really focused on building companies in the lower middle market in the U.S. And so I'd say, what am I about from a business perspective? It's from a capital and management perspective, helping guys build businesses. I realized during my time before starting the firm, I ran a company for a little while, that I don't enjoy running a company. I can do it for a few months, but it's somehow not part of my makeup. Right. I enjoy working with guys that are actually running the companies, but somehow my DNA was not cut out to do that, which is okay. Everybody's got their place in life, and I know my place is not that.
You like the building process, but not necessarily just being in the
managing of the people on a day-to-day basis. I can do for a while, but it's just not part of my makeup in terms of what I'm able to do.
Right.
Is that good enough? Is that
that's great.
All
that's
right.
great.
Good.
I mean, you added your whole college thing. Like, I got to throw that in now. So I have a computer science and undergrad and graduate degree in computer science.
Well, now you see, he taught me off.
I went to Cornell.
Where were you born, man?
I was born in Bahamas, actually. I grew up in Brooklyn, so I'm a New Yorker as well. And how did we meet? So we met through...
I know exactly how we met. I know exactly the moment we met.
All right.
A guy named Peter Stone told me he has a friend named Danny Lemberg that is, trying to put some money together to back some technology thing in Boston. And I programmed computers for about a year in college. Not well, but I did take the course. I knew something about software. And I enjoyed software and that whole discipline of writing good software, which I wasn't very good at doing. But I remember saying, okay, I got some material on the company, and I call this guy, John Belizaire, get on the phone. It was before the days of LinkedIn and all that, so I get on the phone. I have no idea
who I am.
Who this guy, like, I just got a little bio of 4 sentences, went to Cornell, starting a business. That's all I got. Right. And some business plan that maybe looked like a fancy homework assignment.
That's probably what it was.
Probably was. By the way, I worked months to write that thing. So when he tells his story.
So people that know me know that when I'm interested in something, I start to ask a lot of questions at a very fast pace. I also tend not to let people finish answering the question that I ask. It becomes more like an interrogation without the light.
Right.
And so I remember where I was in my office, I remember interrogating you, John, for at least an hour and a half, firing questions away at you. And you'd answer every single one well. Then it took another small session, and then in that second session, I said, John, I don't understand. The opportunity you've laid out for me here and what your company's going to do and all that has nothing to do with what you put in the business plan. Because this business plan, I would never, ever, ever invest in this business plan. But what you're telling me is so different and so much more interesting than what you put on here. I would invest in that.
Right.
So what are you doing? What's your plan?
Right.
So then you say, no, this is our plan. That was just like stuff we put on paper. It's like, all right, fine, I'm in. And so I invested and became very actively involved with helping John build out the company. Yeah. That's how we met. And I remember what John wore when we were negotiating to sell the company.
Yeah. By the way,
I'm not going to get into that.
that jacket.
I'm not going to get into that.
All right, well,
But
for a later
Sugar Hill
time.
suit.
For a later time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
another
You can't wear
time.
that. Like,
It was scary.
That's my style.
It was scary.
That's my flair. What do you want?
Well,
what do you want?
he has a lot better style now.
I'm getting reinforced. What is it? Renewed. Yeah, introduced.
You didn't see the red sports jacket?
No, I'm not yet.
No. It's in the archive.
Nice.
Dip,
Bring
that's
it back.
right.
Okay,
What's your
yeah.
story, man?
So I was born in Kenya. Came to America right outside of Philadelphia. Became a huge Eagles fan, which means I'm in enemy territory here. But basically, like John, I always looked at big trends that were transforming. So coming out of high school, I wanted to get involved with wireless technology because I thought it was going to take over the world. This is back in the early, late 90s, 99. And so I went to Drexel University, focused on RF and wireless technologies, graduated in 5 years because of a co-op program, no business degree yet, and was lucky enough to get into a leadership program at Lockheed that allowed me to basically work on the most advanced wireless technologies in the world. I spent 8 years there going from job to job, and I found that, like Michael, once a company or a job hit a certain stage, I got a little bored and antsy, and so Lockheed recognized that, moved me around quite a bit, and they just threw me into fire after fire. And the common thing my whole life has been entrepreneurship. When I was a kid, I got kicked out of school. I got suspended from school for selling candy, in it was actually grade school and middle school. I'd buy them at BJ's or Sam's Club and then go to school and sell candy for 25 cents. And the cafeteria didn't like it, told me to stop. I was like, I'm not stopping. I'm making money. I got kicked out. I got in trouble and suspended, which is a weird...
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We didn't do a criminal check before you
Before
got
I'm
hired.
18, it's
Yeah,
sealed.
background check.
Oh, with the record sealed.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it's a blockchain protected. But basically from there, I left Lockheed because a lot of my mentors, actually one reminds me a lot of you. He's a rapid fire question guy, Michael. And
Oh, you picked that up already?
yeah, and he basically convinced me to leave, helped me get in MIT Business School to focus on learning how to start a business. Because I had started a few, but continuously couldn't get them going. So I was like, let me go to school and focus on it. And like John, I got a phone call one day, only this time it was John calling me. And I had known John for years, and it was actually a very, very aggressive friendship because he and I were in the same CEO forum together when I was running my last company. And, we all called him the Godfather because he always had good, solid advice. And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well,
Where's the ring,
I've
man?
learned a few things
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
over the years.
And so
I
basically,
give hugs, no rings.
yeah, hugs are good. And so I remember I'd sold my last company, and it wasn't the most smooth transition. So John was an advisor to me that whole time, which really connected us on a deeper level. And he called me up and said, hey, what do you know about crypto? Who do you know that knows about crypto?
Who's the best crypto guy?
Yeah,
You know?
and I said, well, hold on a minute. Tell me why. And then he described what the business model of Soluna was, and I said, well, this is awesome. I said, I'm the best guy I know of crypto. We need to meet. And so then, I was lucky enough to come down here, and I got a abridged version of that interrogation, I think, from you. And, we hit it off, and things were going well. And before I knew it, I was here full time. And it's been amazing. Really, really exciting opportunity.
Cool. Well, guys, and by the way, you kind of glossed over the whole. He says he's definitely been trained well by Lockheed, right? He says that the most advanced wireless stuff. He's like, you were building radar systems.
Radar systems to guide and intercept threats. So it was missile defense. And then I went into building radar systems that just confuse the missiles instead of try to hit them, and that's called electronic warfare. Cool. So that was the next transition of technology. It was like the ushering of a new method of defending our troops.
Yeah. So let's transition to this. So we talked a little bit about the who here. We're three of the core team, and you'll get to meet the rest of the team throughout the coming episodes, right? I want to talk a little bit about the what. So we've mentioned the company name, Soluna, a few times, about our excitement about it. Like, what does this company do? And by the way, our tagline is powering the blockchain. And that probably is a hint, right? It's somehow it's power related and somehow it's blockchain. And so I'll kick it off, and I think I'd love to get you guys' perspective on like, what are we doing here? What is this project? Now, in the blockchain space, when you say a blockchain project, you typically expect to hear something about a new blockchain network that's going to build a distributed ledger to solve a particular problem of some kind. And in our case, we're not building a network. In my mind, what we're building is an infrastructure company. So after Michael called me and I came in and started looking really close at this, what excited me was that we were creating the next major infrastructure player in an ecosystem that could be as significant as the internet has been to the world. And what is this infrastructure company we're building? Well, we're doing something very unique. We are combining one of the best power resources in the world, a renewable power resource. We're taking one of the largest wind farms that we're going to construct, and we're going to combine that with advanced computing to essentially provide blockchain computing services to the blockchain ecosystem. We're going to start with cryptocurrency mining, and then we're going to expand into a whole host of other services that we'll talk about across the series. But essentially, we are a vertically integrated company that combines power and computing. And when we talk about our company and our branding approach, you'll see how we've hinted to some of that. But that's my perspective. That's what Soluna is. That's what the project is. We're building essentially the world's largest vertically integrated blockchain computing company. What do you guys think? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw this kind of idea, when you told me about it, that's kind of what I saw as well. It's a large infrastructure integration play. And, my first startup had to do with saving immense amounts of energy by mapping the inside of a building and telling you where the waste was, right? Mm-hmm. And energy is a big problem that I feel I want to kind of put my life towards. And so when I saw this, I saw not only an insanely effective way of helping create this type of processing power for the blockchain community that's growing, but I also saw a very innovative business model for green energy.
Right.
And I see a lot of projects that may not get off the ground or may not be efficient because they don't have this method of financing the project. And I saw this incredible opportunity to bring on quite a bit of green power, right? Mm-hmm. Teasing a little more on what we do.
Yeah.
And so, it was a very similar kind of mindset for me. And I saw it as big. And another big part of it was, to be frank, is to work with John, right? I was like, I was CEO. I whiffed on a couple, key plays there, but watching another superstar work, I think, and learning is key to life for me.
Appreciate that, man.
See, for me, it's a little bit more simple, and I think the perspective that I have is more about where I come from, in that I see the company as A, utility scale, mm-hmm. B, the lowest cost infrastructure provider in the world, mm-hmm. and C, a company with very high residual value and enterprise value at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. That is not going away. This company will be around for 25 years. Mm-hmm. That's a guarantee. Mm-hmm. That's a lot different than many of the other infrastructure players in this space.
Right. So the other projects that you've seen they're out there. They're very young. Maybe their idea will work, maybe they won't. We've been there, right? It's you've got this idea, you're building it out. It's a completely different play, right? We're developing a company that where we're building real assets, and those assets are being used in a very strategically optimal way, and we're leveraging, to your point, that low cost power, and ultimately we're creating a company that's going to have a role in this ecosystem as it's developing, no matter what happens to the ecosystem. And I think that's what's exciting to me. If you're building a new city, and you don't really know what the buildings are going to be, you've laid out this city plan. You're still going to need pipes. You need roads. You need the telephone system. You need electricity, more importantly, and that's the role we want to play in the future blockchain ecosystem. So I want to talk a little bit about the background of the project. So how did we, really we should ask Michael, how'd you come up with this idea? We've just joined the party.
That's right.
It was July of last year that I was sitting saying, there has to be a link between power and crypto. And I didn't know beans about crypto, nothing. So I picked up the phone to one of John's former colleagues,
Yeah.
Julian, and I said, Julian. And Julian worked at the first company that I worked with John and second company that John ran. And they were co-founders of both. And he's a technological genius. And so I said, Julian, tell me about crypto. Like, what do you know about this?
Right.
So gone through a bunch of iterations with him, and he was thinking about it. Then I had done a lot of reading, talked to a lot of other people, and I knew that it had some relation with power, but I didn't quite know how to put it together. And actually, a colleague, another partner of ours at Brookstone, brought a guy into the office that was running a crypto hedge fund and had talking about all these things. And through that dialogue, it like the light went off. I said, low-cost power can actually power all. So that went off in my mind, saying, okay, we need to create a company to start figuring out what we can do with stranded power, because the Dakla project is stranded power.
Right.
It has nowhere to go. There's no grid there.
Right.
But because of being able to use that power for blockchain transaction processing, blockchain computing, we're able to utilize that power.
Right.
It's in the old days, the analogy I make is if you have cheap power, you put an aluminum smelter in there to monetize that power if it's stranded.
Right. There's
So-
all these, spent smelting plants
Right.
all over the world.
All over the world in these crazy locations because they got cheap power but nowhere to go with it.
Right.
So the benefit we have with Dakla is it's stranded power now, and we're going to monetize that using blockchain computing. But I think in 9 months or 12 months, there will be a line integrating Dakla to the Moroccan grid, which is integrated to the grid in Europe. So not only we're able to get our interest in the site early enough so that we have great economics just as monetizing stranded power, but now it's amazing that it won't be stranded.
Right.
So we can sell power to the grid, buy power from the grid, and so this becomes an on-grid power source. It's just a lot of great things have come together there for us, which is why I'm so excited about that location and why we have come to an agreement with Altus to reinitiate that development with Soluna.
Got it. There's a couple interesting points you said there. One was the importance of energy in the blockchain and in blockchain computing, otherwise known mostly as crypto mining these days. 44%, people can fact check this, 44% of the energy, 44% of the cost that a crypto mining company needs to run their business is really related to energy. So if almost half of your cost is power, you better have the right power.
But John, let me give you an idea of why that particular site.
Yeah.
There are maybe 2, 3, or 4 kite surfing capitals of the world.
Right.
And that is one of them.
Yeah.
And why do you suppose
I've
that
got
is?
these great pictures of people just surfing
Because
over. Yeah.
the wind
paradise.
Yeah, it's
is
amazing.
nonstop. You get off the plane there, the wind rings in your ear every moment. It's almost disturbing. You have to get inside because it's just so wind noisy in your ears.
Right.
And it's a Class 1 wind site. And most of the Class 1 wind sites have either been built out or are so remote they don't pay to get built out.
Right.
That's why this site is
And what's
absolutely...
class 1? What's class 1 means?
9.5, 10
meters per
10
second.
meters per second.
Basically a 23-mile-an-hour wind, basically consistently.
Yeah.
That's pretty windy.
Yes. But, that level of wind is, I think, 80 meters up in the air.
Okay.
On the ground, it's a little less windy.
Jesus.
But when you're doing your...
How do you walk around town?
When you're doing your kite surfing, your kite is actually up that high.
Right.
So you're
it
just
catches.
flying.
Wow. That's amazing.
I've actually seen sailboats powered by kites now.
Yeah.
So they can capture the super high wind and go extremely fast. It's wild.
The other thing that amazes me, just the scale of the site, it's 37,000 acres. I think it covers about just under 60 square miles. So imagine just the sheer size of this wind site. And
Is it bigger than Manhattan?
Manhattan is, I know it's 8 miles long. I don't know what the square mileage is.
Oh, we should look
Across
that up.
might be 3.
Yes, that's only 20. It'd have to be really wide. At
Wow.
8 miles, right?
That's crazy. And I've been joking with the
Fuck.
guys,
That's a lot of space.
Yeah. And I'm like, geez, I really want to get like some drone pictures. Maybe I'll get a drone online. They're like, John, your battery will be dead by the time. You need to fly like a helicopter. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's pretty exciting. I mean, that's the company's flagship site. We also want to look at other sites where there's power already developed, because it takes time to stand a turbine up. But after a while, actually, the funny thing is, as we look at some of his energy development side, the bigger the site gets, the faster the turbines go. Actually, the bigger you build, and so we'll get to a point where we're scaling this thing out. We're not going to build the whole site right away. The initial project is to build a portion of it. We've got this concept of pods. What's a pod?
So pod is 12 megawatts of wind with the associated. So that could be 3, 4, or 5 turbines, maybe even 6, depending on the size we pick.
Okay.
And then there'll be storage and potentially solar power to help stabilize the output of that wind turbine. And then there'll be the data center that consumes that amount of energy.
Got it. Yeah. So that's the integrated pod. And we're thinking about 3 pods for this first initiative. And that's what we're gearing up to do. It's going to come to the market, introduce this concept, interact with and introduce ourselves to potential investors around the world who would be interested in creating the company we've just described. And we're pretty excited about it, right? All right, let's talk about something else. Just going on here. Why do you need this company? Like, what's the problem we're trying to solve? So it's great that we've got this resource. We've combined it. It makes it a very unique thing. We've talked a little bit about energy. Let's talk a little bit about the problem a bit. Is it that if you want to be in the mining business, you should be low-cost energy, or is there a grander problem that we're trying to solve?
If you're the technologist.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think that for the concept of blockchain requires energy. You're basically converting, human centralization and truth into computing power that makes it true. And the other part of blockchain is that typically, unlike normal networks, the bigger the network is, the more secure the network is.
Right.
So in order to develop a new technology, you need to get a critical mass of computing power, or the actual chain isn't secure. And so, on the blockchain side, we see blockchain growing quite a bit, and it requires lots of energy. But also the world is consuming more and more energy on an exponential rate as the middle classes grow in other parts of the world. And that's requiring quite a bit more energy generation. And green power just isn't keeping up, right? Which brings on dirty power, brings back coal.
Right.
And what we can do is solve all of those problems simultaneously, right?
Right.
We could take a site that had been undeveloped for a long period of time, make it a good business plan that Michael would invest in versus a homework assignment. But basically, we can do this all over the world. We can go to places that have very, very good energy generation characteristics and create a business model that makes sense to make that site happen. Then we connect the grid to it. Because the site is there, it makes no sense not to connect the grid to it. Right. And then it solves that chicken and egg problem too. So that, for me, those are the big kind of driving forces of it.
There have also been lots of discussion around the power usage of most of the cryptocurrency networks right now.
I think that there are 2 ways to solve that problem. One, owning the power. And second, I know that I've mentioned this in our own internal discussions. I like to bring up the discussion of Thomas Malthus. Malthus said that we're going to have a population problem on this planet. Too many people, not enough food. We better start birth control. People no more kids because we're all going to die. There's never going to be enough food on the planet. Right. What happened? The agricultural revolution increased productivity, and magically there is no problem of population. Right. The same thing will happen here. It's the same way that you had these big luggable laptops that consume power that you can heat yourself, you heat a room with. Magically, Intel came up with smaller, faster chip that consume less power. The entire set of chips that goes to do the blockchain computing, I believe, will become revolutionized over time, much more power efficient. That's right. And so for 1 kilowatt hour, I bet in 3 years will double or triple the amount of terahashes you can get for 1 kilowatt hour. Right. And so drawing the line to the moon of saying Bitcoin's going to take over the world, it's Thomas Malthus all over again. Oh my God, there's no more food left. Same thing. The chips will evolve, they'll get faster, consume less power, get smaller, and the problem will be solved.
Yeah, most of the content out there around this issue is saying that the amount of power that's being consumed is basically limitless, and it's just going to grow, and suddenly we'll have no power.
But what I find funny is this whole dialogue between Thomas,
right? Yeah,
between Ricardo and Malthus, and there's the press and the opinion pages. Are we going to run out?
Right.
It's the same nonsense. It's like,
That's right.
oh, we're going to run out of power. We're not going to run out of food. We're not going to run out of power.
Right. Exactly. So it's going to be a technological innovation, and I think the business model innovation, those two combined are innovations that will solve the problem. So that's a very good point. Guys, we ran out of time. We could talk about this for a long time.
We could.
I just want to close with a couple of things. What have we been doing? So we've been sort of, in this incubation mode, locked up in a cave to somewhat, creating the company, the brand. We've gone through the whole process of coming up with the new name, Soluna, which is really sun and moon combined. And we like it because it talks about 24/7 energy and powering the blockchain. Our logo design is specifically purposeful to evoke this circle of renewable energy and this delta of computing really coming together as a vertically integrated whole, which is making us unique. And we've been putting the team together. So we're gonna introduce you guys to more of our management team. You're gonna meet some of the incredible advisors that we brought and gotten involved with the company. And so stay tuned for some future episodes where we introduce you to more about the project, the actual win site. We're going to talk about the token sale that we're going to do at some point, and we'll introduce the token economics related to that. There are some interesting challenges around creating an off-grid integrated power platform.
Yeah, so Dip has been working on
so
that.
Innovation around that. So we'll talk about Dip chips.
Dips chips
in those episodes. And but in the meantime, I would like to encourage you guys to go to our website, soluna.io, and download the white paper. We're now starting to call them blockchain primers or business primers now. So you can go to the website and download some resources where we introduce you to our project. I also encourage you to join our Telegram group. It's called Soluna Blockchain, and we're going to be in all of the places you expect us to be on the social web. We'll be on Twitter, Facebook. We're going to be on Bitcoin Talk and a lot of other places where we talk about crypto. So see you on the next episode. Thanks, guys.